As a pastor, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out some of the best ways to help people get closer to Jesus. And I went to a bunch of different church growth seminars and I studied a lot of different kinds of things. For those of you who know me, you know I like to study. And so I learned a lot trying to get best practices from different places. And so many times, particularly for church leaders, what we are told to do is to create something at the building or at the institution, a program or a project that we could invite people into so that they would be able to do something there. And the hope was that as they were doing something, then the church would do something to them to help shape them in some particular way. Now, this isn't all bad necessarily. It's super important for us to be involved in our church communities and to be engaged in a particular space and to give of ourselves in those things. And there's lots of stuff that we can learn from those particular things. But too often it was framed kind of like a factory in essence, where the people came as inputs into a particular process that the church did to them and then outputted them in some way, shape, or form as something that had been manufactured, so to speak, by the church. Now, there's all kinds of problems with this, I think, and one of the main ones is that it removes our individual responsibility from our own discipleship. And instead of being inputs, we should be seen as people, which is one of the reasons why I love this image that I came across so many years ago of the church as a guild for a cottage industry rather than a factory for inputs. It reminds us that where we live and what we do on a regular daily basis, that's the important thing, where the industry happens, where God helps us make disciples and where we solve the world's problems and we do good work. We do the good work that God has prepared in advance for us to do. Most of that is done outside of any church program in a particular cottage, so to say. But then the church has a role as being the guild, the place that supports and cares for and guides and shapes. And so instead of inputs, people are seen as apprentices. And I think there's a number of different purposes for our churches as guilds. It helps stop us from being or seeing ourselves as the center of the world. We come from our cottage, where sometimes it kind of feels like we are the center of the world, to a place where others are also in that, and we serve one another and we give of ourselves there. It also helps us to keep God central in our lives. Because we all know in our everyday lives, it's pretty easy to put other things central. For businesses, it's pretty easy to put profit central rather than thinking about the good that we can do in the world and to solve the problems of the world. And so our churches as a guild can help us to keep God central. They can also help us to do what we are called to do. Not because there are some really good programming that helps to teach or to train us, but because it brings us into connection with others who are doing similar kinds of things. It places us as apprentices with masters who are further down the road and have done some of this work and have learned some of the things that we need to learn from a school of hard knocks from their own lives. And so then they can teach those things to us and they can train us in those. And then it also helps us to help each other, helps us to walk alongside one another, to help bear each other's burdens and to celebrate with each other. And it helps us to do things together. And this isn't just those kinds of special projects that we think about. This is all of our lives in every place that we go. The church can have that role as a guild for our cottage to lead, support, guide, and help maybe discipline or frame our thinking into correct, good frameworks. If this is intriguing to you and you want to dig a little bit deeper, you can read my book, Your Sacred Cottage. You can find it on Amazon. You can go to my website, yoursacredcottage.ca, maybe download the excerpt to see. You can get that for free just before you want to kind of splash down the money. It's also maybe if you think that this is a cool image or a really attractive image for what a church could be, maybe buy a copy and pass it along to your church leadership. Help them to see that they can be a support for the work that Christians do out in the world, not just a place that calls people to serve in it in some way.